Hello, this is Bill Meridian speaking to you from Vienna, Austria on January 2nd, 2019. Happy New Year. This is the second of a series of videos about mundane astrology. This is the Mundane Global Scan. It is based upon the rules laid out in my book, Mastering Geopolitical Prediction, and the subject for today is President Trump's birth time. Here is an overview. The original 9:51 a.m. birth time was obtained from Lois Rodden's database. She cited his mother as the source. My teacher, Charles Jane, was one of the great experts in rectification, over 50 years' experience. He always said that Mom was the best source for a birth time. Now, second, I met members of the Trump family. I met them several times in New York, and finally in London. There were two members of the family there. Astrology came up as a subject of conversation, and I said, is the 9:51 birth time accurate? And two members of his family said, yes, that's the time that we used, which implies that they had his horoscope cast at some point in the past. Anyway, those are unimportant. What's most important is rectification. And as you'll see, rectification supports the 9:51 a.m. time and not the later 10:54 a.m. time. Rectification. Charles Jane said that all charts should be rectified. He liked to say that the correct birth time is the one that enables the astrologer to make accurate predictions. I agree 100%. Second item, by 1960, his Astrological Bureau of Consultation had rectified 4,000 horoscopes. That's right, 4,000 horoscopes by hand. No PCs, no online sources, no software. This is described in the reprint of his InSearch magazines, InSearch 1 and InSearch 2, which you can purchase at billmeridian.com. This group included Dr. Edgar Wagner. Dr. Wagner was a PhD in chemistry. I studied with him. I did not know, unfortunately, Eleanor Hazeltine, Margaret Morell, or Pauline Messina, all who were expert professional astrologers. Jane told me that they concluded that the average birth time, as stated on a birth certificate or as recalled by the individual, is off by about 20 minutes. Now, you know, 20 minutes is going to change the MC by 5 degrees. And if you're using solar arcs, 5 degrees is 5 years, which is quite a serious error in timing. Now, let me just add about rectification. The simplest way to get started is to take solar arcs of the midheaven to Uranus. Solar arcs are absolutely essential in rectification. I have actually seen articles by astrologers in which they state they use transits and progressions, and I have rectified the chart. If you're not using solar arcs, no, you didn't rectify it properly. Because Uranus hits by solar arc tend to manifest events very quickly. And I don't want to go into the process of rectification. That can be done in the future. Let's get back to business here. I now note that the natal 17 Leo ascendant equals Trump's Mars midheaven midpoint. The ascendant also equals the Jupiter Uranus Moon midpoint. It was more active than any other point in the rectification process, that is, his 17 Leo ascendant. This midpoint does describe an aggressive individual in the construction business. And the Jupiter-Uranus Moon connection, you never quite know what he's going to do. A lot of what he does is taken the wrong way, that's the Uranus, by the media or by other people. Second item, that time yields an 8 Taurus MC that equals Sun and Venus Chronos. The midpoint structures are not nearly so dynamic for the 10:54 a.m. time. So Sun Chronos does describe someone who is a master at what he's doing, someone who towers up above other people, has a great deal of prominence. And I think the Venus Chronos, I think he has mastered the art of beautifying. He takes old properties and he reconstructs them, whether you like him or not, and whether you like the ornate decor or not, that's what he does. And I think that's described by this midheaven natally, but let's move on to more dynamic methods. Number one, here is the ACG map. The birth time places Mars on the midheaven at Moscow and places the asteroid Pallas, which represents strategy, on the ascendant. Here it is. So for those of you who have studied Jim Lewis astrocartography, today known as astrogeography and several other names, at the time Trump was born, Mars was on the midheaven running right through Russia, right near Moscow, and there you see the white Pallas line running right through Moscow. So it's a couple more natal points in favor of the earlier birth time. Here are the rectification events that I used to work on the chart. Jane used to say you need 7 to 10 significant events. And certainly marriage number one, April 7, 1977. Second item, first major real estate deal in Manhattan. Third item, his brother died in 1981. Then there's marriage 2, December 20, 1993. Marriage 3, January 22, 2005. Divorce 1, 1990. Divorce 2, June 1999. His dad died in October 1990. Taj Mahal deal opens 1990. It is bankrupt in 1991. And he announced his candidacy for the presidency June 16, 2015. The first one you see depicted here, he's married at 30. And instantaneously, having known this chart in the 90-degree dial, I looked at the ascendant. I'll put the pointer right here. And you count out 30 degrees. And on one side you have Jupiter, and you count out 30 degrees. On the other side you have Uranus Cupido. Cupido is marriage, right out of the Hamburg School. So Jupiter-Uranus tells us it was probably a sudden decision to marry his first wife. But you cannot miss that. That's 30. And if you look at the half solar arc, because in the Hamburg School we use the full solar arcs, the half solar arcs, and the double solar arcs. Very briefly, the rationale for that is that the half solar arc represents the midpoint in between the progressed sun and the natal sun. Just write it on a piece of paper, or print out your own chart and just fool around with that, and it'll become obvious in under a minute. The double solar arc is what we call in the Hamburg School the sensitive point. In other words, if his solar arc was 30, you double it to 60, the 60-degree point, and the natal chart, take the midpoint, and it's the progressed sun. Sensitive point is defined as a point that makes a midpoint. So in other words, you double it from 30 to 60, you put the pointer on the natal sun, find the halfway point between the double solar arc, and what do you have? You have to, by definition, have the solar arc or the progressed sun. So that's the rationale very briefly. So I found no similar planetary pictures or activations for the later birth time. Now, 1990 was a key year. His dad died in October, and he divorced. In addition, he unwisely bought the Taj Mahal, which went bankrupt in the next year. Now here we see the addition of the double solar arc to the ascendant came to Saturn. That's quite fitting. And progressed Uranus was conjunct the progressed midheaven on May 10th. Sudden shock, sudden change regarding the career. And there was a progressed new moon. Lunations, by progression, are always very important. That indicated a new beginning. And then that violent August 6, 1990 lunar eclipse, if you recall, the eclipse was square Mars on one side, Pluto on the other, and Saddam Hussein invaded Kuwait. That eclipse opposed his ascendant by 3 degrees. So I don't imagine it was a very happy divorce. Solar arc Neptune squared his ascendant, and transiting Pluto squared the ascendant. Progressions and solar arcs would not be exact if this were the incorrect time. The latter birth time showed none of these hits for this key year, 1990. Now, at the time of the election, prior to the election, I pointed out that his progressed chart showed the following planetary picture. The progressed sun equaled the progressed Venus MC midpoint for the chart set for 951. That's Sun equals Venus midheaven. This is superb for popularity. I stated this on the Larry Pisavento radio show on the internet and predicted from this that he would win the election. Here is the 90-degree dial so you can see the picture for yourself. There you see the Sun circled on the lower right side, and on a 90-degree dial, right across the dial, we see MC Venus. Couldn't be more popular than that. Now, just to give a little more background information, in Hillary Clinton's chart, if you added the solar arc to her midheaven, it equaled on a 90-degree dial her natal Mars-Pluto. So I looked at that and said, gee, she could have a public temper tantrum. What could go wrong? It could be something she's done in the past, Mars-Pluto coming back to haunt her, and that is when James Comey made that seemingly irrational and useless announcement that they're going to launch a second investigation right at election time, which didn't do our chances any good. But let's go back to Trump. Progressed midheaven equals progressed Venus, progressed Sun. Let's look at Hillary. Progressed midheaven equals natal Mars-Pluto. To me, that told me everything I needed to know to pick a winner. Now, here is more information that was gathered by Christine Ahrens, a very fine astrologer out in Chicago. She did something for the Kepler College which throws a great deal of doubt on the latter birth time and confirms the 951 time. And by the way, let me add in, I'm using an 8 p.m. chart for Hillary Clinton. That time was obtained directly from her at a book signing by Joyce Levine up in Boston. And if you look at that chart, it's got 0 cardinal, the world points all over the place, and you cannot possibly miss that one. Anyway, here is the commercial pitch now, Mastering Geopolitical Prediction, Applied Mundane Astrology, all about coming up with actual tangible results and predictions using mundane astrology, soon to be a major motion picture. And you can get this at the website, BillMeridian.com. We also have Cycles Research Early Warning Service and the other books. Thank you so much for listening. I hope this has shed some light on the birth time that I have chosen to use for Donald Trump. Bye-bye until next time.